Good evening, everyone. I'm Mayor Earl. We're so glad you're here this evening for a special evening. I have a few remarks to introduce somebody, but before I do that, for our guest speaker and for Doctor, these are for you. Maureen will get with you afterwards to give them to you, okay, for being with us this evening. We do appreciate that. Anyway, we want to thank you to Dr. Aloiya Earl for agreeing to be our first speaker as part of this series. We look forward to your presentation. This theater is a partnership between our city and Premier Health, featuring a state-of-the-art sound and lighting system, dressing room, orchestra room, and plenty of storage. It is home to the Springboro Community Theater. In addition to the live theater, musical performances, and dance recitals, we are delighted to kick off another event in the Premier Health Theater, our Speaker Series. Thank you to Premier Health for making this community gathering place possible. We look forward to writing and working together on all our projects together. It's a pleasure to introduce Joanne Rayner, President of Miami Valley Hospital South.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that a lot. I'm Joanne Ringer. I'm president at Miami Valley Hospital South, and I just wanted to welcome you here on behalf of Miami Valley South and Premier Health. We're very excited with this partnership and very excited to have our first speaker here in this theater. And wow, what a beautiful amenity. It's my first evening here too, and it's absolutely beautiful, and what a wonderful thing for the city here of Springboro to have that. I know many of you are busy, and I know we've heard lots of news today. So I did want to encourage you all to get your hand sanitizer on your way out. This is free, and I'm telling you, it's probably the hottest commodity in our area, so please be sure to grab one on your way out. I think it's important, and we are promoting hand washing, distances, staying healthy, and I will tell you, probably the most important thing we talk about a lot in our world is hand washing. I mean, we work right in the middle of it, and we talk about it every single day, and when we can't get that done, we use our hand sanitizer and keep ourselves safe, because we want to be here, obviously, to service our community. We're also really proud of our relationship that we have here with the city of Springboro. Our mission at Premier Health is to build healthier communities. So at Miami Valley Hospital South, we are absolutely there to service your family with all your healthcare needs. But our success, honestly, would not be possible without our community partners, the way we partner in our community. And I again want to thank the mayor, and I'd also like to thank Maureen Russell-Hodges. We kind of go way back, and so we've I said we're like bad pennies. We all just kind of keep circulating around one another, and I really appreciate that, and appreciate the entire team here this evening that's welcomed us. So this evening, you are in for a real treat. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our speaker, Dr. Earl of Premier Orthopedics. Dr. Earl received her medical degree from the University of Toledo College of Medicine and Life Sciences. She completed her residency in family medicine at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center and her primary care sports medicine fellowship through the University of Alabama. Tonight, Dr. Earl is going to speak with us on a topic that garners a lot of buzz in all of our communities about good or fad, making sense of those diets and fueling your body for an active lifestyle. Please welcome Dr. Earl.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you all for being here. So I'm Aloiya Earl, and I'm excited to talk to you all tonight about nutrition. Joanne went through my background, and I have quite literally spent my 20s in school and training, and I tell you that not to garner sympathy, though I do appreciate sympathy for it, but to tell you that I'm grateful for it, because otherwise I would have a lot of difficulty navigating what I think is a very treacherous landscape of nutrition. It can be very confusing to understand how we should be eating for our bodies and how we should be eating for our health. And my hope tonight in the next 20 minutes or so is to condense all of that education and training to help you all feel more empowered when it comes to making decisions about your nutrition. So hopefully you can relate to the feeling of being in the grocery store and just being completely overwhelmed and confused with the choices that you need to make when you're grocery shopping. And how to navigate the marketing on packages and products in the grocery store to pick what's best for you and your family. Take the oatmeal section, for example. So you want to buy some oatmeal, so you're trying to make a healthy decision, and you walk up, you see all different brands and different flavors, and one box says that it's heart healthy. Another one says that it's low fat. Another one says that it's low sugar. Another one is organic, and that one's $2 extra. And it's like they all sound great, and how do you know which one to choose? So I'm going to start by talking about just some of the reasons behind why we diet, and go through first some of the most common fad diets that are currently out there today, and then transition the talk into really practical, hopefully very realistic tips that anybody can follow regardless of where you are on your journey with nutrition. I think one of the most common reasons that Americans diet is for weight loss and changing body composition. We know that we should diet for our long-term health, but weight loss is an aesthetic benefit that is tempting to want to diet for that reason. And health is not only long-term, but also when you're fueling your body with good nutrition, your body just works more efficiently overall. You feel better, you have more energy on a day-to-day basis, you're more productive at work, you get sick less, and your skin even clears up. So there's lots and lots of good benefits as to why we diet, but the hard part comes with how should we do it. So the 4 diets I'll quickly run through are the keto, the paleo, the Whole30 diet, and intermittent fasting. With each of these, I'll talk about what it is and then go through pros and cons. You'll notice that some of them have similarities, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. Starting out with the keto diet. So the goal of eating a keto diet is to make your body go into ketosis, which is changing the state of metabolism. So normally your body goes to sugar or glucose as its source of energy because it's real quick and easy to access sugar as energy. The goal of the keto diet is to completely overhaul our typical way of eating so that your body wants to use fats instead for energy. And so you burn through fat, and therefore you lose fat and you lose weight. But it's drastic. So you can see on this graph, the standard American diet, we eat about half of our calories in carbs, and on keto, you should only be eating 5% carbs, so no breads, no cookies or candies, very little fruit, and only certain vegetables are allowed on the keto diet, and you're mostly getting your calories from fats. So whenever I see a diet, my first question is, okay, so what can I eat? This is a keto pyramid. At the top, you have very little fruit that you can eat. There's all different pictures on this pyramid of fruit, but really they just want you to focus on eating berries. There's certain vegetables that you can eat, mostly like leafy green vegetables. You cannot eat any sort of potato, sweet potato or regular potatoes. And the base of your diet is meat, eggs, and dairy products. People who are on the keto diet sometimes use these little urine sticks that I have a picture of where they will urinate on this little piece of paper, and it will show them, based on what color it turns, if their body is truly in a state of ketosis. So that's like if you're real dedicated to being in a state of ketosis, you'll use those urine sticks to make sure that you're doing it right. So benefits of keto, of course, it's going to cause weight loss and fat loss. At the beginning, a lot of that weight loss can actually be water weight because carbs, when you eat carbs, they hold on to water molecules. And so if you've ever eaten pizza and then you feel like puffy the next morning, that's because you had a high carb meal and you're holding on to your water. And so when people switch to keto, they're like, oh, I'm losing all this weight very, very quickly. But a lot of that might be water weight. You do feel full longer because you're eating a diet that's rich in fat and you're getting fiber from the vegetables that you're eating and the berries. So you might end up eating fewer calories. Of course, without carbs, you have less sugar circulating in your bloodstream, so it can reverse diabetes, certainly improve diabetes. And unique to keto is that when your body's in a state of ketosis, it's actually been shown to decrease seizure frequency in children who have epilepsy. Some of the cons about the keto diet, there's something called the keto flu, how it's referred to, which is the state that you go through feeling pretty sick and fatigued when you transition from your typical metabolism into a keto state of metabolism. That lasts about a week to 2 weeks for most people. It's not as practical for somebody who starts out with a lower amount of body fat because they don't have a ton of that to burn through, in which case the body can turn to muscle to look for protein. So it will start to break down your own muscle if you're not getting enough protein from the keto diet. It does not allow some things that are very healthy for us, like whole grains and legumes, which are like beans. Those are great sources of fiber, vitamins, and micronutrients that aren't allowed on the keto diet. Of course, because you're eating bacon and eggs and cheese all day, it can increase your LDL, which is bad cholesterol. So even though your body might look better, your waistline looks better, your arteries might be looking worse. And the overconsumption of red meat has been highly correlated with certain cancers, especially colorectal cancer. So that's something to keep in mind when you switch to a very meat-focused diet. And it can be difficult to sustain for vegetarians, vegans, and really for anyone when it comes to planning around social events, birthday parties, going out to restaurants, things like that. I heard a yes in the crowd. Okay, so paleo diet. The idea behind the paleo diet is to eat like our ancestor hunter and gatherers ate. So anything that a hunter-gatherer could have found back in like the cave days, those are things that are allowed on the paleo diet. As you can imagine, there was no way to process food or refine sugar. So it's really a lot of meats, fruits, vegetables, anything that can be found out in the wild. Very similar to what you can eat on keto. The big difference is you're not allowed to eat dairy, whereas on keto you are allowed to eat dairy. On paleo, you can eat any sort of fruit or vegetable, so you're not just limited to berries and leafy greens. You can eat potatoes, you can eat bananas. The benefits very similar to keto: weight loss, feeling full, eating less. You might feel less bloated because not only are you not eating carbs, but you're not eating dairy, which a lot of people, even if you're not lactose intolerant, can have sensitivity to lactose and can cause bloating. Improves diabetes. It does encourage you to eat food that looks like food, so whole natural sources of food. You can't go out and find Cheez-It growing off a tree, so it's real food. And it does not emphasize any sort of calorie counting or macronutrient counting. A macronutrient, or if you hear like bodybuilders always talk about counting their macros, that refers to proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. Those are the 3 macronutrients. On keto, those need to be in a very certain ratio, whereas on paleo, you don't need to count those. A lot of similar cons to keto is that you lose water weight, it can increase your bad cholesterol, increase cancer risk with the red meat consumption, does not allow whole grains or beans, and again, difficult to sustain. Whole30, so this diet, the way that it's different from paleo, you'll see a lot of the foods are the same, but it's different because it's a 30-day approach. So you're just drastically overhauling your diet for 30 days. You're not allowed to eat any added sugar, grains, beans, peas, peanuts, or soy products. No dairy, no alcohol, and no MSG. MSG stands for monosodium glutamate, and it's a food additive that's used to increase flavor. You'll see it in a lot of Chinese foods and canned soups. It's always on the nutrition label if it's in that. And what I don't necessarily agree with Whole30 is even if you can somehow make a healthy dessert out of the allowed foods, they don't want you to do that because they don't want you to focus on recreating what they consider to be bad or unhealthy foods. So you're not allowed to make any desserts or treats out of the allowed foods. You can't weigh yourself for the 30 days that you're doing the Whole30 diet or take any measurements. And then once you're done with the diet, you gradually add foods back in from each of the groups that were not allowed to see how your body responds to them. The list I included there are foods that you can eat on Whole30. So benefits, I think one of the biggest benefits of really all of these fad diets, and especially Whole30, is that you eliminate refined sugars, which I think is part of why people feel so much better when they eat this way, is because our bodies have become so addicted to refined sugars that when we start to decrease those, there's huge health benefits just from that one change. It again allows you to eat whole plant-based foods. It takes the focus away from weighing yourself in measurements, which I think is healthy. And it makes you aware of how your body responds to food when you start to add things one by one back in. You learn where there is hidden sugar because it forces you to read nutrition labels. So I put this label here. I think we're kind of conditioned to automatically look at calories when we turn over a food and look at nutrition label. But one thing I want to encourage you to start doing is checking the added sugar category, which is actually a subheading under carbohydrates and under total sugars, is this added sugars. I don't like looking just at carbohydrates because that doesn't take into account your fiber, which is a really healthy carbohydrate. But the added sugar line is something that it's good to start reading, and once you start looking at that, you'll realize what's a high number and what's a lower number and be able to make better decisions based off of that. So the cons, the Whole30 does emphasize success stories. This line at the bottom is from their website. I looked for evidence-based Whole30 information, and all I could find on their website was a survey that the Whole30 folks did, and they said that 88% of people that followed their diet, it really did change their life. So that's not really a scientific outcome, but more of an anecdote. Again, you're eating a lot of meat and animal products on Whole30, and then it has that very good and bad view of food. So this food is good, this food is bad, and we don't want maybe that to change mindset around food. It's drastic, and it can be temporary for people who immediately go back to their former way of eating. Intermittent fasting isn't necessarily a diet, it's just a change in the timing of when you eat, and there's lots of different ways to do it. I would say the most common is the 16-hour, 8-hour method, where you fast for 16 hours of your day and you're allowed to eat for 8. Most people do that between noon and 8 p.m. If you work a regular work schedule, that tends to be the most convenient. You basically skip breakfast, which we've been told for years not to skip breakfast. Now we're skipping breakfast. Some people do it where they just eat once a day, a giant meal, or they'll even not eat for 1 or 2 days at a time, and they do it that way, or alternate days. Benefits, because you have a limited time to eat, usually people end up eating at a caloric deficit, so they're eating less overall than what they were doing before. It decreases insulin in the body. Insulin is like a sponge for the sugar that we eat. And so anytime we eat something with sugar, our body releases insulin to kind of soak it up and use it for fuel. And because if you're intermittent fasting, you're not eating for a longer period of time, you have less circulating insulin in your body, which has good health benefits. It also increases growth hormone, which is a hormone that our body makes to repair our cells. And it also is proven to reduce risk of heart disease when we have increased growth hormone in our body. It increases a process called autophagy, which is the way that our bodies remove our own cellular waste. So it's kind of detoxifying in that sense when we fast for a long time. Some people who fast say that they feel more mentally clear in the morning, and it decreases mindless snacking because you have to focus on when you are and are not allowed to eat. So if you're hungry at 11 p.m. and you go for a bag of chips, or just because you're bored, this kind of interrupts that pattern. The cons, it's difficult to say what the true benefits are on a large scale because there's so many different ways to do it. And so there's not great research on that because of the different methods. It doesn't limit what you eat, so you could literally eat a whole pizza every single day when you're done fasting at noon, technically. Side effects, some people feel more mentally clear, but some people feel more fatigued and they get headaches when they don't eat for that long. And then when they do eat, because they're eating in a more condensed amount of time, it might cause heartburn. In athletes, in order to build muscle, muscle protein synthesis requires athletes or active people to eat protein about every 3 to 5 hours when they're awake. So this would kind of interrupt a muscle building attempt. It can cause blood sugar lows and spikes, which could be dangerous, especially in diabetic patients. It can encourage binge eating. When you finally get to eat, you might want to just eat everything in sight. And again, it's difficult to plan social activities around your eating schedule. Okay, so I've gone through the 4 fad diets, and now I want to transition into some practical tips that no matter where you are in your journey with nutrition, I hope that these can be helpful to you all. I want to also encourage you to commend yourself even for coming here and spending your Wednesday night learning about nutrition, because I think that's a huge step in and of itself and shows that you want to take that initiative to improve your health. So thank you again for being here. Tip number 1 is to eat more plants. So there is an enormous amount of evidence available that shows that a plant-focused or plant-based way of eating is far and away the most effective way of eating for our health, for weight loss, for improvement in our risk factors for heart disease and diabetes. It also happens to be one of the cheapest ways to eat. I encourage patients and individuals to sway their ratio over time. So instead of all of a sudden becoming a vegan, I don't think that's necessary. I think if we just start to eat a little bit more plant-based and a little bit less meat and dairy and animal products over time, those little changes can make a really big difference. There are 2 documentaries on Netflix that I think are great evidence-based stories that give anecdotes of patients who eat in a plant-based way, but they also use really good research and science. One is Forks Over Knives. It actually came out, I believe, in 2011. I think I've watched it like 5 times since then because it always motivates me every time I watch it over again. And The Game Changers, which came out, I think, last year, and is more of a performance-based documentary on how eating plant-based can help active people and athletes with their performance metrics as well as their overall health. When I initially heard plant-based is a good way to eat, this is what I pictured. I'm like, okay, so I'm just gonna eat like a rabbit. But, and I started personally eating this way, I would say around 2012. And I've learned a lot since then about what I can eat that still tastes good and fills me up. And it's not this. Looks more like this. So I like to give recommendations of food that's easy to access. So Chipotle is a great example of somewhere that you can go and get like a full bowl that will fill you up with rice and beans, vegetables, salsa, corn, and guacamole, completely plant-based. And a pro tip, the guacamole is free at Chipotle if you don't get meat on your bowl. So, BB Bop is another restaurant. I don't know, have you all gone to BB Bop? So there's one on Brown Street. There's one coming in Centerville. And it is very similar kind of to Chipotle, but it has a really good tofu option. They put scrambled eggs on your bowl, and they put potatoes and beans on your bowl and whatever vegetables you want. The Impossible Whopper, of course, if you've seen those commercials, is now in fast food restaurants. That is a plant-based, soy-based burger. So it's fake meat, but it tastes really good, I promise you. I think like years and years ago, veggie burgers used to taste kind of like rubbery. And as science has gotten better and more people want to eat this way, they've tasted a lot better. So you can buy the Impossible Burger or Beyond Meat Burger, which are both great in grocery stores as well. I like this. This is a recipe screenshot off Pinterest, 31 plant-based recipes that are not salads. So there's lots of good home-cooked meals that you can make plant-based as well. Taco Bell is probably the best fast food option for vegetarians because you can get anything on their menu and ask them to change the beef to beans or to potatoes or to both, and it's delicious and very cheap. So that's those first 2 pictures are Taco Bell. Panera, they recently came out with something called a Mediterranean grain bowl, which has quinoa, black beans, as cucumber, tomato, hummus, olives, and tzatziki sauce, delicious. And Core Life, which is in Centerville. I'm not sure if there's any more in Dayton, but I know there's one in Centerville, has great plant-based options that are filling as well. So people, when you tell someone you're eating plant-based, the first question is always, well, where do you get your protein? So I have a list here of plant-based protein sources, And complete protein sources are ones that contain all 9 of what are called essential amino acids. Amino acids are building blocks to proteins. And when you eat a food that has all 9 of them, you don't need to supplement with anything else. So soy, any tofu, which is a soy product, has all 9 essential acids. Quinoa, which is kind of like mini rice. Rice plus beans contains all your protein. Hummus and a wheat pita, peanut butter on a whole wheat bread. All of those are complete protein sources. I think a really quick way to get a ton of plant food in very efficiently, if you're really not a big vegetable or fruit eater, is to make what's called a green smoothie. There's lots of recipes. You can search online for green smoothie. My favorite is something that would have a banana in it because it makes it creamy. So I would do like a banana, an orange, frozen mango, ice, and water, and a big handful of spinach. I promise you don't taste the spinach. They're really good. And if you have that, like for breakfast in the morning, you've had more fruit and vegetables than like 95% of Americans before you walk out the door. Very efficient. And eating more dark leafy greens has recently been proven to decrease sugar craving, so a bonus. My next tip is to eat more fiber, and you find fiber in plant foods. So fruit, vegetables, beans, whole grains. Fiber helps you feel full longer, and so you actually end up eating less even into the next day. If you have a fiber-rich dinner, you end up eating less calories at lunch even the next day. It improves your overall digestion. It increases how fast your body uses fat for fuel. Less than 5% of Americans eat the daily recommended fiber intake because we do not eat fruits and vegetables. Sometimes I get the question, if I'm making a smoothie or a juice, should I use a blender or should I use a juicer? And my answer is always a blender, because you're throwing a whole fruit or or greens in there and getting all that fiber, versus just juicing out from a vegetable and then you get rid of the fiber when you use a juicer. If you do start increasing fiber in your diet, make sure to also drink enough water and increase your water intake, because without water to carry fiber through your digestive tract, it can cause a lot of stomach cramps and GI troubles. I find this graphic to be interesting. It just shows that certain foods, these are little stomachs, fill your stomach more. So if you look at the bottom row, the first one, that's chicken. One whole stomach full would be about 2,000 calories worth of chicken, but you'd have to fill yourself 16 times if you were just eating broccoli to get 2,000 calories. And so, not that we want to get 2,000 calories out of broccoli, but it goes to show that these foods fill you up faster, and so you end up eating less calories overall with high fiber diet. My next tip is something that I call negative calorie preloading. So this is eating something before your meal that will start to fill you up, and then you actually end up eating less calories with your actual meal. So things that would count and help for this would be a cup of fruit, a cup of vegetables, vegetable soup, or a simple salad. So not the salad that you want to eat that has ranch and bacon and cheese and hard-boiled egg on top, but just like a simple greens with a light dressing before dinner. It will not only improve your digestion and your absorption of nutrients because you're eating those good foods on an empty stomach, it will decrease your overall calories. This graph is from a study that looked at eating a cup of apple segments before a meal, and the individuals that ate those apples ended up eating 650 calories for their meal before they were completely full, versus those who didn't ended up eating 1,000 calories. The apple cup itself was about 60 to 80 calories. Okay, my next tip is to leave one bite of food on your plate. So this is not because that bite over time, every meal, is going to add enough calories to make you lose weight. It adds a little bit of calories that you're not eating, but it's more of a mental challenge. So we have been conditioned to, like as children, to finish our plate and celebrated for eating everything on our plate. But as adults, a lot of times we just keep eating what's in front of us, even if we're full, because we don't even register that we're full until 20, 30 minutes after we finished eating. So by leaving a bite, it kind of just mentally interrupts that robotic pattern of I need to eat everything in front of me. It improves your mindfulness around eating. And if you start to do that and prove to yourself, okay, I can leave a bite, this won't be the last meal of my life, you might start to realize that you're getting full sooner and just be more aware of that and leave even more on your plate when you truly are full. My next tip is to decrease refined sugars. We talked about this a little bit with the fad diets. So checking that added sugar line and learning where there is hidden sugar in foods. So ketchup, applesauce, different soup broths you wouldn't think have added sugar, but they're sugary. Cereal is like eating a bowl of sugar. Yogurt, so things that sometimes we think would be healthy, you'll be surprised to find how much added sugar is in them. And foods that are marketed as low fat or light, so if you go to whipped cream, for example, and you see the light Cool Whip, that often has been replaced with sugar. They've taken out some of the fat, but they want it to taste good still, so they put in more sugar, and then they say we're low fat. So be aware of that trick and just check that added sugar line. Cliff Bars is a great example of this. This is a food that I think is marketed as a health food. They have a man climbing a mountain on the package. The added sugars in a Cliff Bar is 21 grams, which is the same as a Snickers ice cream bar. So you might as well be eating. And honestly, if you're climbing a mountain, you do need sugar. But for the average person who's buying a Cliff Bar because they think they're having a healthy midday snack, you might as well get a Snickers and enjoy your snack. My last tip is to make the healthier choice more often. So our day is full of choices as to what we're putting into our body. We make at least 3 choices a day unless you're intermittent fasting and you're having 2 meals a day, plus all the snacks you're eating and everything that you're drinking throughout the day. And every time we make a choice, it's an opportunity to say, is there a better option here? And these things don't need to be drastic. So it doesn't need to be, do I get the cheeseburger or do I get the salad? It can just be as simple as, do I not get the cheese today on my cheeseburger? And those little changes over time can make a really big impact. And it can also encourage you to start realizing, wow, I feel better when I do that. I'm going to keep doing that more often. I don't necessarily like the mindset of aiming for perfection. I think with the fad diets, that's one of their flaws, is that it's an overhaul of what you're used to doing, and when you feel like you fail at that, it can be tremendously defeating mentally. And so looking at it more as every single time I eat, I can make a difference. I don't have to start Monday. I can start tonight with dinner. And if I don't make a better choice tonight, I have more opportunities to do that tomorrow. I want to give some examples of little food swaps that are easy, better choices to make that can kind of help with some common cravings. So candy, if you have a sweet tooth and you crave candy, a couple of better options that you could consider. There's packaged sweets called Smart Sweets, if you've heard of these. They're available at Target in the candy aisle. You can also get them on Amazon. I don't know if they're at many other stores yet. But they are little, they're meant to look and taste like candy, but they're made out of plant fibers. So this one is Swedish fish, and it really tastes like Swedish fish. They also make them to taste like Sour Patch Kids or peach rings, and they only have 3 grams of added sugar. So they take care of a sweet tooth. A whole package of them is like 70 or 80 calories. Another option, if you have a sweet tooth at night, for example, you could just get a bowl of berries and add some whipped cream. They even make plant-based milk whipped cream, so almond milk whipped cream, to put on some fruit, and that can be enough sometimes to take care of a sweet tooth. If you're in the bread aisle, maybe switching from a white bread to a more whole wheat, whole grain-based bread. Dave's Killer Bread is an example of a really great organic whole grain bread. If you tend to crave salty snacks or chips, sometimes just making the switch from chips to a bagged popcorn. Popcorn's obviously not a vegetable. It's not the very best thing you could choose, but it's better than choosing the chips. Some people who crave salt sometimes can take care of that craving just by eating pickles or olives or like a really salty vegetable. So that's one option. Switching from tater tots to a veggie tot is another small change you could make. So veggie tots are in the same freezer section as tater tots. These sweet potato and cauliflower ones I think are the very best tasting ones. Kids like them too, so I think that this is just an easy swap that's a more plant-based option. And switching from fries to sweet potato fries, or even, so fast food. I don't eat meat very often, but when I do, it's a number one from Chick-fil-A. And they have great waffle fries, which I do sometimes get, but sometimes I make the healthier choice and I get the fruit cup instead of the fries, which makes me feel better about my chicken sandwich. And they have a pretty good fruit cup, so another easy swap. If you have a sweet tooth more for chocolate, just putting a spoonful of peanut butter, dipping it in some chocolate chips. Again, it's not the very best option, but you're getting some protein that way. You end up usually eating a lot less calories than sugar, so a simple trick. So in conclusion, let's go back to, I guess, the oatmeal section. So you're in the oatmeal aisle. I would encourage you to pick an oatmeal that has lower sugar and then maybe flavor it yourself. So add a scoop of peanut butter to it, or cinnamon, or real fruit. So that'd be my full circle oatmeal recommendation. But be patient with yourself and don't punish yourself if you feel like you've started a diet or a lifestyle change and you feel like you're failing. Remember that every single time you put something in your body, that's another opportunity to make a better choice. Remember that you are in control of every choice, and you completely have control over your health by changing your nutrition in small pieces day by day. And give yourself credit for small steps. Just being here tonight, give yourself credit for that and for wanting to learn about nutrition. Thank you so much.
Okay, just real quick. Cooking oils, canola, avocado, olive oil, all that. Any thoughts on a good one to use, or are they all pretty much in the same category?
Good question. So it's tricky because they have different smoke points, so it depends on what you're cooking. I recommend usually olive oil, coconut oil, and avocado oil as my top three, versus canola oil, which was I think the traditional go-to choice. I use those three the most.
On the protein, the proteins you had listed, vegetable proteins,
Yes.
beans, etc. You didn't have pea protein. Is that not a good? Because I've been seeing more pea protein made from peas.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So I don't think that was on the graphic.
No,
but
it wasn't. It
you're
wasn't,
right.
because
Yep.
I was looking for it.
Yeah, that is a great protein source. I don't know if maybe they picked the top 8 or 12 or however many were on there, but peas are a good plant-based protein source, absolutely. Yep, peas and chickpeas.
Do we have anybody over here? Okay, I'm gonna start right here.
Hello, 2 questions actually. What are your thoughts on carb cycling to introduce a caloric deficit? And what are your thoughts also on using supplements like a whey protein to still get some of those protein macros?
So I'll answer your supplement question first. My recommendation for active individuals is usually to try to get your protein from food first. And if you truly struggle with getting however many grams you're aiming for out of real food, then I recommend supplementing with whey. But usually, especially in the high school, college athlete population, adding a whole food made smoothie or milkshake, I tell them to do a big scoop of peanut butter, some plant-based milk, so oat milk or soy milk, almond milk, and then cacao powder. If they really think that's too bitter, then they can do chocolate syrup, and then ice and a banana. That's usually a protein-rich smoothie that just gets them over however much they were in deficit of. But if you really struggle with getting enough grams, I think a whey protein powder is okay, or a pea protein powder. They make good plant-based protein powders as well. Oh, and then the carb cycling. So how would you I think it's okay in that it challenges your body, it challenges your metabolism, and it kind of forces you to almost, you don't go fully into keto, but you're kind of switching that ratio quite a bit. You lose water weight definitely on that third day of the cycle, and then you kind of build it back up. So you're definitely challenging your body by doing that. I think it's good to carb cycle in relation to your training. So on like a low impact day or a light aerobic day to do the lower carb, and then a high aerobic day to do the higher carb, and just lining it up with training, I think can be beneficial.
My question is more about targeted weight loss, and maybe it's not even weight loss, maybe it's more of a bloating type question. So what should you stay away from, or what should you do more of, and how does drinking alcohol affect that?
So as far as stomach weight, yes. So it usually, yes, you're right about the bloating. Central obesity or weight gain in like the midsection is the highest risk form of weight gain. And so just an overall good active exercise program is good to kind of mitigate that. But keeping a diet that's lower in dairy, lower in those processed sugars certainly helps the midsection. And then as far as alcohol goes, a lot of those elimination diets tell you to completely eliminate alcohol. And I think that has a big part because of the wheat content in people feeling less bloated overall. A little trick about bloating is to, similar to the calorie preloading, is to whatever fruit or vegetable or plant portion of your meal that you're having, eat that first because it digests the quickest. And then if you are having a meat or like a starchy potato, eat that as the last part of your meal because it digests the slowest. So if you move things that digest faster through first, you won't get that backup and that bloating.
As far as plant-based, what do you eat in terms of dairy? Do you eat any, or cheese?
Me personally?
Yeah.
I try to limit it. I love cheese and I love ice cream. But I do
more
try
just
to
avoid
limit it.
processed if you're going to eat it.
Sorry?
If you're going to eat it, just avoid like more processed foods.
Yeah, and just try to minimize it. I never drink milk anymore because I find that the milk alternatives taste so good and even better, and they last longer in the refrigerator. But and same with ice cream. There's a lot of good alternatives to dairy ice cream now. But cheese, like the less processed, the better.
And if you are going to have a drink, what would it be?
Oh, that's so tough too. Are you talking a beer or a mixed drink? Anything? Sorry? Are you talking alcohol? Okay, making sure we're on the same page. So as far as, so red wine has a lot of antioxidants. A glass of red wine a night can be healthy in a way if you're already drinking alcohol. But as far as mixed drinks, I would say just like keeping it simple and not adding a ton of sweetener. So like a vodka soda versus like a vodka cranberry juice. And then beer, I don't know, that's so tricky. I think, what is it? Michelob Ultra has like the 80 calorie, low calorie. Yeah. Is that helpful? Yeah. Okay.
Could you address stevia, the sweetener?
Stevia, yes. So that is a relatively good natural sweetener. That's the one that I think has probably the best evidence as far as like the safest, healthiest natural sweetener would be stevia versus the others. Mm-hmm.
What about the monk fruit sweetener?
What is it? I'm
The
sorry.
monk fruit sweetener?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, that's another one that's on the market.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm sorry.
I know you mentioned briefly low fat versus full fat, like breads or mostly processed things. Do you feel the same way as far as someone who does love dairy? Like cheese, are you better off just getting the cheese the way you like it, or should you be buying the low fat? Same thing with cottage cheese.
Yes.
Or yogurt.
I say just get the regular version because then you're less likely to have it be replaced with sugar. Check the sugar label, but that tends to be the pattern, is if it's marketed to be the low-fat version of those things, it just has more added sugar. So I get the full-fat version. Yeah, and it's one less processing step, too, because they filtered that out and replaced it. So, thank you so much.